I'm Miriam.
And I'm Elise. Two friends bound by the love of books.
Taking on the world one chapter at a time. This is the Bookbound Besties podcast. Hey, Bookbound Besties! Welcome to episode 5 of season 3 of the Bookbound Besties podcast, where we dive deep into your favorite books, have unhinged chats, and Elise theorizes about what's to come because she has not read the whole book yet. Today we are talking about From Blood and Ash, chapters 17 to 20, and I cannot believe we are already halfway through. By the end of this, we'll be halfway through the season.
Yeah.
It is flying, and I feel like all we've done so far is set up so much. Mm-hmm. Nothing has actually happened. Rylan is dead.
Yeah, we've definitely, with the Craven attack and stuff, a little bit is happening, but I definitely still feel very in the dark as to where we're headed and what's happening. And even I think this chunk of chapters shows how Poppy is still very in the dark.
Yeah.
About her whole situation and everything. So at least we're with Poppy, I guess. But I'm excited to definitely get to more info.
I just keep thinking back to the Unhinged book review that I filmed last December when I was on my family vacation. Yeah. And how even by the end of the book, I was like, I still have so many questions. I'm still so unsure. I'm super intrigued. I liked the book, but this is definitely a series that has, it's an onion.
Okay. And, like an ogre. I like it.
And we just are going to learn so much over time. And it's going to feel like, you know what? What you just said about how we're very much like Poppy is actually how you feel through the whole series. Because JLA does not leave you Easter eggs. Mm-hmm. She literally pulls, and I'm not saying she pulls things out of nowhere because it was not thought through. Like, this isn't a Stephanie Meyer with the rest of the Twilight series type of situation. I genuinely think there is a plan, but you experience the unfolding of this plan with shock and awe the whole time. You're just like, what the heck? How does this happen? How did people keep these secrets from us? It's kind of that vibe.
Yeah.
Which I've personally found really fun because not every book that you read needs to be so laid out for you that if you really were a strong reader with great reading comprehension skills, you could probably see where things are going. Just because that's not the kind of reader I am. Even a Harry Potter, even a Court of Thorns and Roses or Throne of Glass, I was not the kind of reader who tried to figure out what was going to come next. I just enjoy the ride. So a book that doesn't even allow me to try to figure out what's coming next works for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I am enjoying it. I know episode 1, I was like, I don't know. But I'm at a point where, I am enjoying it and it's interesting. But, yeah, I still feel very lost.
Part of me is kind of, in a weird way, disappointed that you're enjoying it. Because I think it could be really fun if we continue on with this series and you're not liking it and I liked it so much. I feel like it could just be...
could change.
No, I know. But I'm just saying, I think it could be fun and interesting.
To torture me?
No, I don't want you to be, hating it or actively disliking it. But I would think that it's fun to have the conversation because the conversations we had in the first episode, I found to be really interesting and different. Right. And I think it gives a glimpse into our psychologies because you're somebody who reads into everything and you hoard those emotions and you have a really hard time letting go of them. Meanwhile, I am everything is water off a duck's back to me. And I just go along. I don't ask questions. I'm just and I think that as a listener, let us know, besties, if you agree or not. But I think as a listener, it could be fun to either put yourself with me or with you in between.
For sure.
I don't know.
I think the fact that we react to things so differently does make for a fun dynamic for the podcast. Though sometimes we butt heads over things. If we always agreed,
it'd be boring.
It would be boring.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Good. Just as you said, it would be boring if we agreed.
I know. Well, we do agree. So, we do. And we like a lot of the same things, but it's just our reactions are so, like you just said, we are such different people. We absorb emotions differently. We react to things differently. But I think that's the beauty of our dynamic and our friendship,
Yeah, totally. It's not going to change, so we have to either like it or leave it. I don't know. If you want more Bookbound Besties content, be sure to follow along on TikTok and Instagram, where we post clips from our episodes, funny, silly videos, and our unhinged book reviews like the one I just mentioned. Also, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. By doing so, it'll push us through the algorithm. And I might be crazy, but I really think that because we're in Canada, the algorithm hates us. So we need all the help we can get to grow this community. We love doing this, but it's a lot of work. And the more the merrier.
I agree.
This is your weekly content warning. This episode does contain topics that are not suitable for little ears. It's actually probably one of the tamest chapters we've had, but still, just to be safe.
Yeah, this wasn't as bad as other things.
Yeah.
From what I remember right now, but I might look at my notes in a second and be like, oh.
I mean, there was like the Priestess Analia bit that like,
yeah, but
it was okay.
It was fine.
Yeah, I really think it was fine. The Craven hand, maybe?
Anyway, we'll get to it.
All right. Before we get into it, we do have some chit-chatting that we kind of need to do. I have an announcement. I don't know. Am I going to say that I have an announcement?
Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm going to say it. It's just like I don't know how to say it.
Yeah.
Anyway, whatever. I'm being really awkward. I'm pregnant.
Yeah. I wonder if anyone guessed it.
I really wonder too, because I think that my energy has been really weird the last like couple months. So I am almost 13 weeks. So I'm out of the woods. We had our 12-week scan. Our baby looks like a baby now. It doesn't look like the blob that it did the first time that we heard its heartbeat or whatever.
Yeah, she sent me a video and I was like, oh my God, it looks like a baby.
Yeah, it's so crazy. I have been so sick. So a lot of the delays that we've had this summer and a lot of the scheduling that we've had this summer was literally because I have been horizontal on this couch all day long. I felt so shitty. Yeah. And my amazing, wonderful husband has literally taken on his life and my life. He has done everything. He has cooked, he has cleaned, he has done groceries. He reassures me when I get emotional over stupid things. And when I cry about feeling so nauseous, he reassures me that this is all for a good cause and praises the way I look, even though I feel like I look like Winnie the Pooh. I mean, I'm starting to show, but it doesn't look like a pregnancy belly. It just looks like I got a little pudgy.
I mean, now it's starting to look more pregnancy. Like when I walked in today, I was like, huh, she looks pregnant.
Yeah.
So, which is kind of cool.
It is, but now I feel self-conscious. Am I showing too early? Like, I gained like an appropriate amount of weight according to my doctor, but I don't know. Like, this has kind of like been my headspace. You guys are kind of getting a hint into my headspace. I've been a little bit all over the place. This is like a really gnarly experience. Like stuff is happening to me that I can't really explain. And obviously it's the first time I do this. So I don't know. I just am so caught off guard by every new change. And yeah, luckily my husband is also an accountant. So he's on top of all of this, also taken on some of my work because we have our own business and we cannot leave our clients hanging. So while I've been on this couch sleeping for most of the day, he has also been keeping up with my work. Honestly, like, I know I say this a lot, and I know that I've highlighted this, especially after I had my accident earlier this year, that we love to romanticize these fictional men, but really and truly, we need to appreciate the real ones that are out there because I could not do this without him. He's been amazing and has really stepped up to the plate and has been an absolute rock through this whole process and has been encouraging and reassuring, any of my fears. If I'm feeling really good one day and I think that something, is wrong with the pregnancy, he'll, stay strong and stay calm and all that kind of stuff. And anyway, I'm going to shut up now because I can keep rambling on and on about how great he is and all of this. But anyway, that's kind of the news.
Exciting.
It is exciting. Baby Bestie will be arriving at the end of February, God willing. And yeah. That's kind of it. Crazy. So I will just be getting bigger and bigger. If you're watching us on YouTube, that is why. I do not have some like unknown disease that is making me gain weight. It is all purposeful. I don't know. How do you end this?
I don't know. It's exciting though.
Yeah.
And it's exciting to be able to actually say it too.
Yeah, it is. It's exciting to be able to not be worried that we'll slip up or, yeah, I don't know. And we're not finding out the gender. I don't know if I said that.
No, but surprise baby.
Yeah. Other than that.
On my end, things are not great. Last week, our house got flooded.
Mm-hmm. We had a huge storm here in Montreal.
Yeah. So our basement got flooded. It had 6 inches of water. We're really lucky compared to some people, but 6 inches of water throughout an entire basement is enough to completely ruin all the floors and all the walls. So we had to gut the basement, basically. Anyway, it's been a really hectic week. I have not read much.
That's
not gonna
okay.
lie.
It's understandable.
But luckily I had already read the chapters for this episode. So I was like, okay, at least that part's done. Thank God Scott is level-headed because we've worked so well together. We were literally destroying our house and we were calm despite being exhausted and like literally doing 16-hour days.
Mm-hmm. But on the bright side, you're going to get a brand new basement.
That's what I keep telling
That's
myself.
what I keep telling you because Elise keeps she goes, oh, this sucks and this and that, whatever. I was like, yeah, but you hated your basement and you wanted to redo it anyway.
I know. I guess would have been nice to have planned it. It's been very much like scramble and rush, and we'll see how it goes. It wasn't just us. It was like so many houses. If you walk, like when I walk Stevie, it's like every second house, like our whole neighborhood got hit, and not just in our area, like a lot of different areas in Quebec got hit. So
yeah, my dad place got flooded
as well. Yeah, so now we're like, it's going to be a war to get building materials.
Yeah,
because everyone's going to be renovating. But anyway, we're going to try to, move on it as fast as possible, and hopefully by the end of September we'll have a semi basement. I don't know.
But I mean, the good thing also is that Elise is not taking on any contract work this fall. So, and that's really the main use of your basement. I mean, you do have your TV down there and but you could live your life on your main floor without the basement. So it's not as though it's going to be a significant disruption to your life.
For sure.
Now.
For sure. I don't need my studio. Exactly. That was one of the things I said. I was like, imagine I was working on a contract right now. Like, one, I would have lost all the stuff I was working on.
Yeah.
And two, I can't work anymore. Like, everything is packed away. So, but yeah, I'm just going to be teaching this next semester, which will give me a more regular schedule, which will be nice.
And it'll give you the breathing room required to get downstairs done.
To deal with that. Luckily, Scott and I are both very handy, so I don't know how to do everything, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there's stuff that you'll be able to do yourself. And we also have a ton of friends with different types of manual labor jobs. I don't know how to like categorize it, but like
and they've reached out and offered help, and everyone's been really kind about that. So
yeah, sorry, your 2 accountant friends can't really help much there.
Hey.
We can do your budget.
That's fine.
All right. Do you want to get into From Blood and Ash and leave our lives behind us for now?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
So, world building. There wasn't much this week.
No.
But in one of my chapters, we did get a glimpse into the history of the War of Two Kings.
Yep.
As the Kingdom of Solace knows it.
Good distinction there, by the way. Love that.
I just have a suspicion a little bit of where we're heading in terms of that. So
I don't care to share.
I don't trust the Kingdom of Solace and their system because there's so many unknowns, and they work so hard to keep everyone in the dark about it. We see it very clearly in these chapters that like Poppy doesn't even know why her ascension
matters
so much. And when she asks, she is hit, basically. So it's just like, what are they hiding? There was also, I think, the passage about false gods. The guy who throws the hand, I think, is the one that says, he calls them false gods. Which obviously, I mean, if you believe in your religion, every other god is a false god to you. Like, that's normal, even in our world, right? But yeah, just there's so much that I'm like, are they telling us not the whole truth? What is actually going on? So that's why I just wanted to make the distinction. This is the history of the War of Two Kings, but from Solace's perspective.
Okay.
So it's 2 sides to every story.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Actually, there's 3. 2 sides and the truth.
Boom. Okay. Pompeii was the last Atlantean stronghold. Jalara Solis led the opposing army. Jalara Solis were in the Kingdom of Solace, so obviously this is the kingdom that I guess we are rooting for, or they are rooting for. The Atlanteans had achieved godlike strength by drinking blood of humans. So this is what cause the Atlanteans to grow, I guess, their armies and their kingdom. Then 2 gods stepped in. We have Nyctos, he's the king of the gods, and his son Theon, who is the god of war. So they appeared to Jalara and gave the gods' first blessing, which is the blood of the gods. So the Atlanteans take blood of humans or innocents, and then the kingdom of Solus get the blood of the gods. And that's what gave them their power. And according to this history, is what gave them the power to actually defeat Atlantia.
Yeah, and that is what the process of ascension essentially is. It's
being given the blood of the gods.
Very good. I mean, I had no world building in my chapters, so let's jump into the chapters.
Okay.
Chapter 17. I might have gone like really nitty gritty into chapter 17, but it's okay. Chapter 19, I didn't go as nitty gritty into.
You do what you feel is best for your chapters.
I don't know. It's just because you know what? I mean, listen, besties, we'll give you a little sneak peek behind the curtain. Elise and I were talking. We were saying one of the great things about From Blood and Ash is the dialogue, is the banter. And when you're trying to dive deep into a book and talk about it, it's kind of uninteresting to just...
Yeah, we're not just going to sit here and reread all the banter.
Poppy said this, and Hawk said this, and Victor said this, and Tawny said that, you know? But I also think that the conversation that was had in chapter 17 is enlightening and is a bit of a turning point in the Poppy and Hawk relationship. So I did want to spend a little bit of time on it. But then they did have another conversation in chapter 19 that I thought was just a little bit less important.
Fair. Okay. Chapter 17. Hawk is in Poppy's room, and it's time for their chat. They talk about the Red Pearl, her training, her past with the Craven, and even the deaths with dignity. This heart-to-heart leaves Hawk even more in awe of Poppy and only brings them closer, which is basically what you just said.
Basically, but that's okay. You said it much more eloquently. So we pick up the moment we left off. Hawk is storming into Poppy's room, and he's not here to make peace. He dismisses Tawny, and we get a comedic 3-way ping pong match between Poppy, Hawk, and Tawny, because Poppy doesn't think Hawk has the authority to dismiss Tawny, and Hawk thinks he does, and Tawny has no idea what's going on because she didn't realize that Hawk and Poppy met on the Rise, so she's just like, what is going on here? And here we get a little introduction into what will be the Hawk-Poppy dynamic that I personally love so much, and it is confrontational. Despite not having many interactions, Hawk can read Poppy like a book. He senses that despite what everyone says, the actual only big threat to her safety is her own actions, to which Tawny agrees. With a bit of reassuring from Poppy, Tawny leaves, and we can really get into the meat of this chapter.
Just as she leaves, I love that Tawny jumps in on
Teases
the princess.
her with the princess,
And she like side eyes Hawk. It's like their little gag. I thought it was very cute.
It's giving best friend energy that if you are like into a guy or trying to ignore or reject or not come to terms. I don't know why I'm struggling with my words, but whatever. Like if you're trying to not come to terms with the fact that you have feelings for someone and everyone else can see that you have feelings for each other and they kind of joke about it in front of you. I don't know. It's just...
It's a great dynamic.
Yeah, it's a fun dynamic. Yeah. After Tawny leaves, Hawk disarms Poppy with this compliment about her hair, which is unbound for the first time that he's seen it. And Poppy doesn't want to let herself get carried away by his charm. So she's like, is this what you wanted to talk about? And he's like, no. But then he doesn't resist kind of taking her all in. And remember, guys, she's not wearing much. She's literally wearing a nightgown. And again, their dynamic is at play because he's almost taunting her with the way he looks at her. Like he is not being subtle about the fact that he finds her attractive or intriguing or all these things. And he knows that she's technically not allowed to act on these impulses, but he also knows that she is impacted by him.
Yeah, he knows that there is interest there. And not just because of the interaction they had at the Red Pearl. Like, I think even just in her body language and the way she responds to everything he says, she has very physical reactions to everything he says, right?
Yeah, and I just love it. Honestly, it is so probably toxic in real life, but in books, when you read of like a cocky guy who's like, you can tell is a good person, but is outwardly behaving in a cocky fashion. And then it angers the girl and it just goes to like rile him on further. Like, I just think it's such a fun interaction to read that in real life, I'm sure I would want to like hurl a knife at his face, but still like, you know, whatever. I like reading about it. Anyway, she almost caves because he's really looking at her and he's basically undressing her with his eyes. So she's almost about to go grab a robe to cover up, and he like notices that she's going to do that. And again, is kind of like daring her to do it. And so she's like, you know what? No, I'm going to stay exposed. He admits to her that she is nothing like he expected. Despite his sincerity, Poppy snarkily asks if it's because of her ability with an arrow and a blade or in hand-to-hand combat. And Hawk's like, yeah, that, but also because of the red pearl. To which Poppy explains that it was her first time there, and the only reason why she was on the second floor was because Victor was there and she needed to hide because obviously she didn't want him to know that she was there, and she also did not want to see what was happening on his end. Before the conversation could get too personal, like why she stayed in the room and allowed all the things that happened between them, she changes the subject, asking him what he's going to do about the fact that she was on the rise. So remember, the pattern ever since Hawk kind of came into the picture as her personal guard is she has been absolutely paranoid that he's going to tell on her for being in the red pearl, now tell on her for being on the rise. And he sits down in the armchair in front of her, like so unfazed, so chill, so like arrogantly calm, and does not answer her question, simply asks if Victor's the one that trained her. And now it's almost like a game of chicken. Like, who's going to be vulnerable first? And who's going to
it's true.
Kind of cave? Because it's literally, if you think of a tree with like branches, the number of times the subject changes is absolutely insane.
Yeah, but I noticed that too. And it just made me think back to how you like Poppy's train of thought because it's not linear.
Yeah.
And I find the conversations in these chapters are very much that. They end up going back to topics that they didn't really finish talking about because they had a tangent. And like in normal conversation,
that's exactly what we do.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
Which is, I would think, hard to like write.
Yeah. Well, because especially as a writer, you want the story to be moved along in a certain way. So I feel like every conversation you have is almost always either tied up in a bow because it has to be or left untied on purpose. Whereas here, you're right, it is so much more natural and it just really brings you into them as people and like their frames of mind.
And you still get the important info.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I enjoy it a lot.
So Poppy doesn't answer his question, but he continues with these different random questions that he's asking her, and he nails her fear that he will end up going to the Duke. So he's bringing back up the question she had asked before. He had, you know, whatever, exactly like you just said. And he goes, well, what will the Duke do if I do tell him? And he reiterates that she was about to say something the other day and brings up her and Tawny's weird response to the Duke's summons. And he noticed, of course he did, that she hadn't left her room for 2 days after being summoned by the Duke. So he knows what's up. Like, he knows something's fishy in this whole situation. And she's like, okay, but why do you care? And he says he's a good judge of character. And on top of that, he was watching her when the Toulouse family came to court. And on top of that, he points out her bravery for going out on the rise when he knows men who are guards and it's their job wouldn't have gone out there if they were given the choice. Like, they literally only went out there because it was their job. She dismisses all this as traits and not as evidence that he knows her well enough to care. And then he turns it around on her and he's like, well, do you care about me? Like, would you care if something happened to me? And she can't really answer. She's just kind of stuck. She's like, oh, well, he's right. Like, just because you don't know someone very well doesn't mean that doesn't allow you to care about them.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's obvious, like, they have a connection, whether she's ready to admit what that is or not, or even to figure out what that is or not. There's just some sort of connection there.
Exactly. He simply tells her that she's a decent person and that's why she cares. And I love this. When she asks if he's a decent person, he says, quote, I'm many things. Decent is rarely one of them. Ooh. He tries again about the Duke and she brushes him off. So he pulls a line that I've heard so many times, like especially these days because I'm watching so much trash reality TV, when he goes, quote, it's weird, isn't it? How it feels that I've known you longer. It just feels like such a pickup line. Like, I believe him when he says this, but it's so, you know, like when you think about it in the context of like dumb reality TV or even like a boy that you meet in a bar or whatever, you know, like.
Yeah. I've been watching, actually, tangent, sorry, but I've been watching the new season of Too Hot to Handle.
So you're watching trash reality TV too?
Yeah. And I was about to say, I don't watch a lot of them, but this is a show that a friend of mine was like, oh, you have to watch it. And I started watching it and I've watched every season and the new one just dropped more recently. And yeah, with the week I had, I was like, you know what I need? Trash television.
It really is the answer to all of your problems. Like, and you know what? It probably is not great for my mental health. I'm sitting here feeling like a potato and literally only getting bigger and bigger. And I'm watching Love Island, where these girls have the perfect bodies and they have great hair and makeup, and they're just sitting there in their bikinis. I think it's like 60 episodes in a season.
Oh, whoa.
And I'm only at like 9.
Why?
Because that's the whole thing about Love Island is there's an episode that comes out every single day. Really?
Which is like too much for me. Like I find that overwhelming.
Yeah.
But I don't know, maybe when I'm done Too Hot to Handle, maybe I'll jump over to Love Island.
Love Island Australia, let me tell you, it's so messy. It's so messy. I love it.
That's the fun of it.
I know. Anyway, okay, sorry. So Poppy doesn't want to acknowledge that she agrees because in her mind, it would lead down a road that she couldn't pursue anyways, even though she has, truth be told, already caught feelings for Hawk. So she changes the subject, which I feel like is almost a game now when they don't want to let things get too personal. They just are like, okay, I'm gonna ask something like really random. So Hawk asks Poppy, what was she doing on the rise? And this opens the door for her to reveal how she got her scars. So this, I think, is a super important part of the conversation because Victor, shockingly, has actually informed Hawk of her background with the Craven, but I guess didn't tell the whole story. So this allows Poppy to explain how when she was 6, her parents wanted a quieter life, so they left the capital, and on their way to the Neil Valley, they spent the night in an inn where they were attacked by Craven. And what really stayed with her and marked her and impacted her was the fact that because this was a small village, most people there relied on guards and professional protectors, so they were not empowered with the knowledge and skill to defend themselves. Mm-hmm. And as a result, she, quote, refuses to be helpless. And Hawk understands this and kind of respects the fact that if there were an attack, she would go down fighting. He and I find that to be a really brave thing and a really brave sentiment, but she just dismisses it as fear. And I love the quote that he says, quote, fear and bravery are often one and the same. It either makes you a warrior or a coward. The only difference is the person it resides inside. And I just think that's such a good thing to remember just in life. Mm-hmm. But I really love how he's validating her and he's not diminishing her qualities, whether we think she's trying to be humble or if she truly believes what she's saying, that it is just fear and it isn't bravery. I love that he's like, no, this is a great quality in you.
Absolutely. For sure. I wrote that quote too.
Did you note that when they talk about the Craven and Poppy claims that so long as an Atlantean lives, there will be Craven, Hawk simply says, that's what they say?
No, I did not.
Park that.
Okay. Interesting.
Then Hawk throws us a curveball. He asks about the rumors he's heard about the child of the gods giving those cursed death with dignity. She panics a little because this means that potentially word of her gift could be spreading, but he clarifies that it's not actually a rumor. He's been asking about her. And then he reveals that he has the same views on the way that society deals with the curse as she does. He thinks it's deplorable that these heroes are treated like scum when they've really made the ultimate sacrifice. Then he excuses himself and leaves us with an iconic line that I'm saving for later.
Okay. I think I also have it for later. Throughout this whole conversation, there was just one part, and I don't know where it fit into the conversation, so I wasn't sure where to jump in, but he says the Ascended could have gone out there.
Oh, yes.
And they'd have a higher chance of surviving, yet they didn't. You did. And yes, he is attributing her strength to her and telling her how brave she is. But I also found it interesting that it's almost like he's planting a seed of doubt in her head. Mm-hmm. We've seen a few times the signs of him not agreeing with this world. So I just thought it was interesting. He pointed it out. And I think later on, he says something else that it's just like he's also kind of chipping away at the society, and I found that interesting. Anyway.
You should find that interesting.
Okay, well, we'll talk more about it in the next chapter.
But what do you think about what he said about the fact that the Ascended really are best suited to defend?
He's right. I mean, they're stronger and faster, right? So they're, I guess, more treated like royals. Like they hide behind walls.
Nobility.
Nobility. They hide behind the walls instead of fighting. And I think we've talked about this, I think back in season 1 or 2 about Fourth Wing and how the king seemed like this bumbling man. But he was super declarated, but he doesn't fight his own wars, and just like the difference between a king who will stand with their army and a king who stands behind their army. It's obvious in this society, the higher ups just hide behind their walls, despite physically being stronger, which is crazy.
Yeah. All right. Dimple count.
None.
I have one.
Oh my God, I missed a dimple?
Yeah, I think you did.
I must have.
Yeah. Question count.
21.
I got 19, and I highlighted them this time in my book. Pregnancy brain, I guess.
It's hard to count, honestly. Awards.
What is your most romantic line?
Not a line, just the way Hawk sees her.
Yeah, that's lovely. I really like that. Mine is fear and bravery are often one and the same. It makes you a warrior or a coward. The only difference is the person it resides inside. I just really love that as a sentiment generally. What's your funniest line?
And what do you think you need to protect me from in here? An unruly bedpost I might stub my toe on?
I loved when he calls her princess. She says, "Don't call me that." She stomps her foot. He lifts an eyebrow and is like, "Did that make you feel good?" And she says, "Yes, because the only other option is to kick you."
Love it.
Yeah, I love their dynamic. I think it's so much fun.
Yeah, for sure. And the last one, I think we have the same thing.
Yeah, I think so too.
You do the honors.
Okay. The next time you go out, wear better shoes and thicker clothing. Those slippers are likely to be the death of you, and that dress, ... the death of me.
Whew, spicy.
Yeah. I told you it's worth tracking the questions.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, definitely it's going to be plus or minus, but...
I mean, how many books do you read where the FMC asks so many questions?
Oh, for sure.
And it's only going to keep going. I mean,
Yeah.
It's not as though at one point she just becomes passive and...
Good.
Yeah, no.
No, I love that because, I mean, my brain is also asking a million questions, so I want to hear them vocalized. Chapter 18?
Chapter 18.
At their training session, Victor is not impressed by Poppy's craving-killing adventure. Then we attend a fear-inducing address from the Duke and Duchess that ends with proof that the Descenders walk amongst them. So it's the next morning, and Poppy goes to Victor for training, and it turns out Hawk told him what Poppy was up to the previous night, and Victor is not happy about it. He's on her about what if someone else had caught her, but Poppy argues that Hawk is above and beyond anyone else skill-wise, and that's the only reason why she was caught. Victor goes into showing her how to throw a proper punch, and as they're training, Poppy tries to reassure him that Hawk won't go to the Duke, though she can't reveal why. Poppy knows that Hawk does the same dying with dignity thing, so she trusts him.
Yeah. And also because so far he hasn't told on her about the Red Pearl.
Yeah, so she's basically trying to reassure Victor, like, I trust him, but she can't give supporting evidence, I guess. Victor thinks that she just trusts him because he's hot.
But I love it. He's like, listen, it's totally normal if you're attracted to it. And you know what? Listen, you have to hand it to her. She's just like, no. I trust him. Do I find him attractive? Yes.
Yeah.
That's not why I trust him.
Yeah.
I love how she doesn't even try to be coy or, she just,
honest.
She owns it.
Yeah.
She's like, yeah, of course I'm attracted to him.
I mean, if he's as good looking as everyone is saying, it's hard to just dismiss that. You know? Anyway, Victor goes on to say that she's important to him, and not just because she's a meeting, but because she's her.
I know.
It's really cute. So they have this nice little like father-daughter moment. And then there's a chapter break, and we end up with the Duke and Duchess addressing the city.
The hug that she gives him when he starts to just talk about how important she is to him, I just thought was so cute. And I found this to be such a sweet scene where you see their dynamic of toughness and the high standard that Victor places on Poppy, but also the tremendous amount of love and tenderness between the two of them. And there were just a few quotes that I wanted to highlight because I thought they were so beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely.
So at one point, just before the chapter breaks, he says, quote, "I know I'll never replace your father, nor would I ever try to, but you're like a daughter to me." And then again after he goes, "I worry about you partly because it's my job, but mostly because it's you."
Well,
yeah, I just thought it was so cute. And, he ends this whole interaction with, quote, "Your punches are weak when you're not doing them correctly. But girl, your aim is deadly. Don't ever forget that." So he's being tough on her. He's critiquing her technique, but then he's also, it's almost like a shit sandwich.
which seems to be their dynamic. I feel like there's been a lot of like back and forth with the comments.
You know what?
Before.
I'm a fan of the shit sandwich. I think that it is a very effective tool.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, the next part after the chapter break brings us to the Duke and Duchess addressing the city. And Poppy mentions that she's never seen the Duke address the city like this before.
But I think also the Craven attack was unprecedented.
Yeah. So they're on a balcony and declaring that it's because of the god's blessing that the Craven didn't overtake the rise. And the Duke isn't shying away from the fact that it will happen again, which Hawk kind of like makes a side comment like, "Oh, that'll surely ease fears."
Yeah. He's so snarky during the speech. I love his little commentary in the back.
Yeah, it's very clear that he's like not for the Duke in this.
Yeah, he does not drink the Kool-Aid.
No.
And it's very refreshing.
Absolutely. So apparently Victor and Hawk have been throwing a lot of quips back and forth to one another.
The rivalry has me screaming. I think it's so funny.
Yeah, they're like obsessed with getting the last word.
Yeah.
So it's just a lot of back and forth. And Poppy says this has been going on a while.
But I think Hawk is on top at the moment, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go Hawk.
And the Duke and Duchess continue to explain that while the gods didn't fail them, they are unhappy with Solus. They spoke to the gods and have concluded that the people of Solus are losing faith and that the dissenters are among them. And that is why the Craven almost prevailed.
It's victim blaming.
It's very victim blaming. It's also just, I mean, it's insane, but also that's just how things work. But they're using fear as a tactic to control their city, which is really icky, and to control their faith as well. And it's also, I felt like they were using it as a, well, you see, the other day you asked not to give your child and look what happened. The Duke says, quote, "What can anyone expect when there are those who wish to see us dead? When we are the gods given form and the only thing that stands between you and the Dark One and the curse his people have cast upon this land." So I didn't realize that they are the gods given form, like they are representative of the gods, because they have priests.
Yeah, so they're essentially like the reason that the Ascended value beauty so much and why they're all attractive is because it is supposed to mimic the gods and it's godly to be beautiful. So if you think of it that way, the Ascended are almost like the representatives of the gods in Solus. The priests and priestesses and the third and fourth sons and daughters serve the gods. The best way I could describe it is, even though in the kingdom of Solus there is a king and queen, think of the gods as like kings and queens, but then the king and queen and the Ascended as like the nobility who behave on behalf of the queen and king. The way, like I'm saying in terms of real life, like, you know, in real life, all of the aristocracy are meant to represent the monarchy through society.
I understand what you're saying, though. So what happens if the second son or daughter is just like really ugly? Are they rejected?
I think maybe the process of ascension like beautifies them the same way in Twilight it does.
Oh, like they drink the blood of the gods and become beautiful?
I think so.
Oh, maybe. I just thought like maybe they're like, okay, you've ascended, let's throw you off the tower.
Yeah, I mean,
or you're not worthy, or I don't know.
maybe. But I feel like the easiest answer, I genuinely don't know, or I don't remember, but I feel like the easiest answer would be like magic.
Yeah, it could
They
be.
magically become more beautiful.
Yeah,
I'm not
it
sure.
could be. It was just a thing that popped into my brain right now, so I had to say it. Poppy does note, though, that not a single Ascended helped with the attack. So she's bringing back that thought that Hawk planted in the last chapter, despite them being faster and stronger than humans. And like, again, it feels like, is it intentional? Is he trying to chip away? Because like he sees, oh, she doesn't fully drink the Kool-Aid either. Let's see if I could like chip away at that more. Or is it just, he's just talking out of his ass? I don't know.
Or does he want her to start questioning things that she's taken for granted because of her role in society and the potential power that she has inherent to that role?
So in that moment, Poppy loses control of her power again. Only again, this time, pain is not the only thing she feels. So she feels the terror and the anger that is in the crowd. And she also mentions another thing that she can't identify. Hawk comments again how this speech is not in the least bit calming. And that kind of snaps Poppy back to herself because she was like losing control, didn't know, but Hawk's voice saved her.
I mean, was it his voice? Was it his snarky comment?
I know.
We will never know.
I know. I'm just saying she's very aware of the man. Then she spots the blonde guy from the council meeting in the crowd, and she's feeling the weird emotions from him again, which last time in the crowd, she kept getting stuck on this guy, not really understanding what was coming from him, but she feels that same feeling. And as she scans the crowd, she's able to pick up on more people like him. He's moving through the crowd, so Hawk and Victor are both alert and kind of tracking the guy. And the Duke states, quote, "We will honor their faith in the people of Solus, not by shielding those you suspect of supporting the Dark One, who seek nothing but destruction and death. You will be rewarded greatly in this life and in the one beyond." So basically he's saying, like, if you suspect someone, say something. This is bad. This is bad for society. This is like the Salem witch hunts all over again. Like, obviously they want to protect their society. If that is really their goal, that could be good, but it could also turn so bad. and so blamey, and just like people be accused even though they've done nothing, and bringing that kind of energy to a city could be very dangerous.
Yeah, neighbor turns on neighbor.
In that moment, the blonde man yells, "Lies, liars," and then he says something interesting. He says, quote, "You do nothing but steal children in the name of false gods." Wait, what? Who are the gods if they are false gods, you know? But again, 2 sides to every story, or 3 sides to every story.
Precisely.
And then the man throws a hand.
A craven hand.
A craven hand at them and says the titular "From blood and ash we will rise." But like, why did he throw a hand at them?
That's the thing. It's like, okay, if the craven were a creature that was like a mythical creature that was actually a real creature, and this was evidence of its existence, and that would be like a really earth-shattering revelation, okay, like it makes sense. But why? I agree with you. It doesn't really make sense. I mean, unless, like Poppy thinks, maybe this comes from, I think they talk about it in my chapter, but like maybe this came from somebody who was cursed within the rise.
Yeah.
Rather than it being outside of the rise. I don't know, but like,
it felt really flat in terms of like, what point are you trying to make by throwing this hand?
because the statement is a lot more powerful than the hand.
Yeah. And all I'm picturing is him trying to huck this hand up on a balcony, which he clearly can't reach. And then what? It's just going to bounce on the floor? Like, the visual is just so ridiculous to me.
That's so funny.
I was like picturing a hand bouncing.
Yeah. I mean, listen, the man did make his way forward through the crowd, so it is possible that he did chuck it up all the way to the...
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was picturing a very high balcony. We don't actually know how high it was. Like, I was picturing this, like, big, massive thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, the hand just made me giggle, guys. I don't know. And that's it. We end with a hand.
We end with a hand. Well, actually, we end with the Duke having this, like, really sassy comment about how, well, like, one of you has revealed yourself, so...
Like, see, it's working.
Yeah.
Anyway, dimple count.
0.
And question count.
5.
Oh, I got 3. We'll go with 5.
Okay.
And we will remember to say the tally at the end.
Yeah, it's in our notes now.
Because we have forgotten too many times.
What is your most romantic line?
"You know I'll never replace your father, nor would I ever try, but you're like a daughter to me."
Mine's also a Victor line. "It's just that we don't know him, and you're important to me, Poppy, not because you're the maiden, but because you're you." Love that so much.
Me too.
What is your funniest line?
"My hand-to-hand fighting skills aren't that bad. If that were true, he wouldn't have caught you."
Mine is, "The truth is not designed to ease fears," Victor responded. "Is that why we tell lies then?" Hot questioned, and I pressed my lips together. It's just that little head buddy dynamic I love. What is your spiciest line?
I don't have one.
Oh, I actually took the dissenters line. "You do nothing to protect us while you hide in your castles behind your guards. You do nothing but steal children in the name of false gods. Where are the 3rd and 4th sons and daughters? Where are they really?" And I think this is a very important question that we will hopefully get an answer at some point. So
this definitely played into why I was, oh, well, this is the history the Kingdom of Solace is saying, but obviously there's secrets here.
Yeah.
You know?
Chapter 19.
Hawk whisks the girls away to safety and into some playful banter. Poppy then has an audience with the Duchess and learns that her powers are evolving. Though it's forbidden to discuss, it seems Poppy has a lot more in common with the previous maiden than we know.
After the drama of the Duke's speech and the dissenters' outburst, I love that Tawny's first reaction is, how did this guy get a craven hand? Like, not what he said, not what the Duke said. And for once, she is speechless. Poppy, on the other hand, is focused on what I think to be the correct thing. And it is what the dissenter said about the 3rd and 4th sons and daughters. Quote, "While I didn't agree with there being no exceptions, insinuating that they were being stolen as if done for nefarious purposes was outrageous. There only needed to be a few words spoken for them to behave like an infection, tainting a person's mind. I didn't even want to imagine what the parents of those children were now thinking." What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, again, we know so little about everything. And now it's like, oh, they also know so little. Like, I guess I didn't realize how much information the Kingdom of Solace knew, which is proving to be very little. Like, they give up their children and these kids are just never seen again. And we're being told they're serving the gods, right? They're working in the temples or whatever, but no one has seen them. And even, I think maybe it's Tawny or someone says like, oh, well, the priests and priestesses have seen them. But it's like,
Yeah, but if
They
they're
said
perpetuating
so.
this system.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they said so. So like, where are they? Like, are they even alive? I don't know. There's so many options. It's really scary. But it definitely adds a level of how sinister this is all becoming.
Well, I told you this series is a lot darker than the series we've read in the past, and we are starting to get glimpses into where that darkness could lie. And I think that this is kind of one of those little breadcrumbs. Hawk shocks the girls by noting that he wouldn't be surprised if more people felt like that dissenter. Quote, perhaps if people could see their children every so often, beliefs like that could be easily dismissed. Fears allayed. Bon point, mon friend. Mon friend. Bon point, my friend. Bon point. When Poppy refutes his point, though, by saying, quote, nobody should make claims like that without any evidence. All it does is cause unnecessary worry and panic. Panic that the dissenters have created and then will exploit. He also agrees with her. And would you look at that? Somebody is holding two conflicting ideas at once. Like, both could be true. It could be true that it would allay fears for the parents to see their children every once in a while, but also the dissenters are capitalizing on that fear and exploiting it. They're not mutually exclusive. By now they've reached Poppy's room, and Hawk asks Tawny to leave them to talk in private yet again, and he insists on entering her room before her to check for any threats, and then his skill of observation comes into play. He noticed her getting uncomfortable during the Duke's speech. She plays it off like she was dizzy because she didn't eat enough because she doesn't want him to know about her gift. But then he surprises us by claiming to hate. So this is kind of like we were saying before, like the way that the conversation just like shifts constantly. He's like, I hate this. And he's talking about talking to the veil. And I can't really blame him. I can only imagine how disconcerting it is to talk to like essentially a ghost, whatever. And Poppy also agrees and is absolutely beside herself when he asks what it feels like, because nobody has ever asked that before. Basically, people are so enamored by her title, by her role, by, you know, the fact that she's blessed by the gods and chosen by the gods and all these things, that they've never actually thought of what it's like to be the human being under all of this weight.
I think they don't really see her as a human being. That's
No,
the
exactly.
issue, whereas he does.
Yeah. She honestly tells him that she finds it suffocating, and when he suggests that she takes it off, since there's no reason for her to be wearing it, she breaks the rules of having to wear it in front of people at all times. When she doesn't wear it in front of Tawny, she refuses. In her mind, this is like the last barrier between her and Hawk, both physically, because she can hide her expressions and she can blush and whatever behind it, but also it is a constant reminder of who and what she is. So he basically excuses herself and she is left wanting. And it is so, like, it really stayed with me how she thinks to herself that she stood there, she didn't move until that feeling completely passed, which you can imagine probably took a while.
It's intense.
The scene changes, and we learn that Poppy is about to meet with the Duchess to discuss her evolving gift. The Duchess misunderstands, concerned that somebody actually found out about her gift, and Poppy is like, no, that's not the case, but despite the fact that I'm not supposed to be using my gift, I have noticed certain changes. And we learn that Poppy is essentially forbidden from using this gift until she is deemed worthy by the gods. But it's just like, again, kind of like what you were just saying, that she's not really viewed as human. This is a tool in her toolbox. This is something that she can use for good, and like she can use it for her own personal good in the sense of judging like people around her and sensing maybe like now that it's evolving insincerity or deceit or whatever, like she can protect herself by sensing people's feelings. But then also she can do good because now she can also extend those feelings to other people. And she essentially explains to the Duchess that she's been experiencing more emotions than just pain, but it's only when she's in large crowds. It's harder to control it then because, again, the Duchess is like, you're not supposed to be using this. So anyway, she uses that as an excuse, and she assures her that it's really recent because the Duchess's first response is, have you told Priestess Analia? And Poppy is like, no way. Priestess Analia is in the Duke's pocket. Like, I can't tell her anything. Then the Duchess absolutely shocks her by requesting that she use her gifts on her. But remember, from earlier in this book, Poppy already knows and has stated to us, the reader, that she has never felt anything from the Ascended. So she's unsurprised in this moment when, again, she doesn't feel anything from the Duchess.
I found it a interesting reaction from the Duchess because the Duchess knows that Poppy doesn't feel anything from the Ascended, which just made me think, oh, the First Maiden eventually was able to feel something from them.
Oh, that's how you interpreted it.
Well, why else would she be like, oh, test it on me?
I don't know, because she also had a really weird reaction. Like, she almost seemed disappointed.
Exactly. So if the First Maiden
Oh, see, I didn't see
that,
it. Oh, okay, that's interesting. Because, like,
because she's like, oh, maybe it's evolving like the first maiden, because otherwise, as far as we know, Poppy's just not able to feel anything from the Ascended. I don't know.
See, I actually saw it as like the Duchess being sad that Poppy couldn't sense anything. Maybe she's trying to communicate something to her.
Yeah, maybe. Also,
I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
For me, it was more about the Duchess than about Poppy and her gift.
Yeah, because she does seem disappointed.
The Duchess confirms that her gift is indeed maturing and that it would make sense because she's nearing her ascension. Despite it being normal, she does warn Poppy not to mention it to the Duke, which is suspicious. But the reason isn't what we think, which is because the Duke would like beat her for it or whatever. It's because it would remind him too much of the first maiden. ?
Yeah.
Apparently, this happened to her as well. And she's so bad, or whatever she's done is so bad, that they do not speak of her. It is forbidden by the gods.
What did she do?
I know, it's so bizarre.
Like, what's her history? Obviously, when you're told it's forbidden, me anyway, I'm like, well, now I need to know everything.
Well, yeah. I mean, especially because as far as we know, there have been 2 maidens. We know nothing about the first one.
We know next to nothing about the second one, too.
Yeah, but even like Poppy even says it in like your chapter.
Yeah.
The first maiden, whatever happened, either she ascended or something, I don't know, something happened.
Yeah.
But the rest of the kingdom has survived since she walked this earth.
Yes.
So why does the future of the kingdom hinge so much on Poppy?
I think she does say she did ascend.
Yeah,
she wasn't rejected.
Yeah. So the Duchess allows the rules to be broken just this once to tell Poppy about it. Quote, "We do not speak of her. Her name is not worthy of our lips, nor the air we breathe. If it were possible, I'd have her name and her history scrubbed in its entirety." And Poppy notes that the Duchess is like so riled up talking about the first maiden that the size of the chair that she's gripping starts to crack. So it just amplifies your curiosity about this first maiden.
Absolutely. The fact that she is so angry, the fact that she's like, don't mention it to the Duke. There is a story there.
Absolutely. So the OM, original maiden, was not found unworthy, but in a weird turn of phrase, the Duchess says that it's not because she was worthy. Like, it wasn't that she was worthy, but she wasn't found unworthy.
Yeah.
So she was just normal?
I think she was saying...
Like the burden, is it like innocent till proven guilty?
No,
like
she was ascended.
Yeah.
So she was worthy, but not deserving of the title, really.
I know.
Is like the backhanded comment by the
Duchess. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, okay,
but I'm saying like the burden of like, you know how the burden of proof is with the prosecution in like the law? Like you're innocent until proven guilty. Yeah. So it's kind of like this. Like she wasn't unworthy, but she wasn't worthy. Like there's a difference between saying that you're innocent and you're not guilty. Okay. You know what I mean? I used to watch a lot of like legal procedurals. Okay. But quote, "In the end, her worthiness didn't matter. Her actions put her on a path that ended with her death. The Dark One killed her." And that is how the chapter ends. JLA. You know what? I have said this in my Unhinged book reviews. She is the queen of the last line of a book.
Oh, that's terrifying.
Yeah, but the last line of a chapter, she's pretty good with that too.
Yeah, that's scary.
Well, you don't remember me telling you, we do have this on, I think season 1 or something.
Yeah.
When I read the sequel, I never read my fantasy books before bed because they rile me up too much. But for some reason, I just was so hooked and I got so close to the end that I was like, oh, I'm just going to read it before bed. And I read the last line of the sequel and I was so shook. I literally, like I didn't think people did this in real life. I literally turned my face into my pillow and started screaming into it, like silently screaming into it because Justin was right beside me and I didn't want to wake him up. But yeah.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that. I didn't know it was of the sequel of this book.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really funny.
I mean, the last sentence of this book is going to have you reeling.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. No, I think it will.
Okay.
And it's not like because it's like scary or terrible or like super suspenseful.
Like
it's just like a mic drop moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Dimple count.
None.
Question count?
15?
15!
Yes! What's your most romantic line?
I don't have one.
I mean, it's kind of cheeky, but would you love to hear that I really like you?
Okay. Yeah. I would. What's your funniest line?
Should I wait out here while you inspect under the bed for stray dust bunnies?
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I just realized I'm reading this. Your most romantic is my spiciest.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I did say it's kind of cheeky, and I didn't have a spiciest, so
there we go.
Chapter 20.
Yeah.
Poppy has a lesson with the priestess that goes awry, but Hawk is there to keep her safe. We then get a long talk between Poppy and Hawk, only bringing them closer. Second big long heart-to-heart between those two. And honestly, I'm here for it.
Third.
Oh, yeah, second this episode. But
Third
yes,
this
you're
episode.
right.
Chapter 17, Chapter 19, Chapter 20.
Look at me counting. That's why I'm not the accountant. Hey.
Yeah, but you've been more correct with the questions than I have, so.
I'd love to know if there's any listeners also counting, and I would love a comparative.
Why would anybody be that crazy?
I don't know. Because it's fun. I don't know. It's a game to play. But if anyone else is keeping tally, I would appreciate to know where you're at so we could, compare notes. Poppy is reading out loud from the Solace history book about the Battle of Broken Bones. And she notes that she hates reading out loud, which made me giggle because
You hate reading out loud?
I don't hate it. I just think I'm really bad at it and I trip up over my words. So I wish I was better.
You've gotten better.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
That makes me really happy to hear. Okay, well, hopefully we just keep riding that wave. So she says the word Skotos, but the priestess corrects her saying it's Scotis.
Yeah.
And apparently every read through, the priestess changes the pronunciation of it.
Which is such a caca move.
It's such a caca move, but I love that in the first page or so of meeting her that is planted there because it really paints a picture of like who she is.
Yeah.
And how shitty she is as a teacher, as a person. We haven't met her yet. And like already within that moment, you're like, oh, this is who she is.
Well, we already know that we don't like her. We're not her biggest fan because of the fact that when Poppy had her lesson, quote unquote, with the Duke, it was because Priestess Analia told on her. So.
For sure. Hawk then speaks up saying it's actually Skotos. And Poppy was right. His family comes from that region and therefore knows the proper pronunciation. And then Huck is being a little snarky snark, tacking on that it might be a hard language to learn for an Easterner and that he wouldn't want Poppy to seem uneducated.
I know. I love this. Like, it's such a little like, shove it to the man. What's the expression?
Stick it to the man.
Stick it to the man. You know?
Yeah, I loved it too. He's so snarky and also like really bold because he's snarky with Victor. He's snarky in this chapter. Like he's not afraid to like step out of line.
But it's because he can back it up.
But it's because he could back it up. And it's because he knows it's for what's right.
Yeah, but also because he's incredibly skilled. Like, he wouldn't get fired because they need him too much. Like, he's just too good at his job. So it almost...
He's such a waste.
Yeah. It gives him that permission structure to push the boundaries a little.
And he takes it.
Oh, yeah.
Poppy continues to read through the history until the priestess stops her, asking why she shuddered at the part about the blessing. And Poppy says, quote, "It's just that the blessing seems to be similar to how the Atlanteans become so powerful. They drank the blood of the innocent and the ascended drink the blood of the gods." I was just like, my thoughts exactly. Like, obviously it'll come with repercussions, but I love that she made that connection and she like put it out there and she's like, wait a minute, we're hating on them.
Yeah.
We're hating on them for this and we do the same thing.
Yeah.
However, the priestess, she's obviously less than impressed, but she does kind of come back saying there's a difference between taking from the innocent and being given something.
Which is true.
Which is a good point. But obviously in the moment she's like really pissed and she's like, how dare Poppy question it? And that Poppy must have grown fond of the cane, which is basically threatening to tell the Duke. And also Hawk is there to hear that. So we know that's coming back. Poppy then questions why the future of the entire kingdom rests on her being given to the gods on her 19th birthday. What if she doesn't ascend? And how does that stop others from ascending? So I didn't realize until this moment that Poppy didn't even know her role.
She's kind of mentioned it before.
Been questioning it, but like I didn't know that she fully didn't know.
Okay. Yeah, she is completely in the dark.
Which is terrifying.
Yeah.
And like would only make all her actions, it makes more sense that she's rebelling and running around because she's given a purpose but with no context to the purpose.
Yeah, she's basically not given any stakes why she should be abiding by these rules, and
which seems like not a good move on Solas's part. No, I mean, I guess they just want her to have blind faith. But anyway, the priestess cocks her arm back to slap her, but Hawk catches the wrist. And in this moment, Poppy comments again how fast Hawk is and like how she didn't even see him move. And every time that she mentions it,
do you see Bella and Edward in the forest? You're impossibly fast and strong.
was just like, oh man.
Say it out loud.
How many times have we quoted that on the podcast?
I don't know. Too many, probably.
Yeah. Anyway, it made me giggle. So we had our little Twilight moment, and Poppy is shocked because even Victor has never been so bold to stop this from happening, and he has seen it happen.
Rylan as well. Haynes as well.
Yeah. So she's just kind of like, holy shit. And the priestess promptly ends the session, saying she has too much to deal with the upcoming rite. Like, she's fully insulted and kind of storms off. And Poppy tells Hawk that he shouldn't have done that because now he might lose his position. But in that moment, Hawk pieces together that the Duke hits Poppy with a cane, and Poppy denies it. But also, like, her behavior in playing down everything that happens to her is very normal behavior for someone in an abusive situation. So, like, I understand why it's there, but it's just like my heart just breaks.
I know.
Reading it every time, you know?
Yeah.
Of like, oh no, it's fine.
And she's more concerned about him and the repercussions that will befall him rather than what is absolutely certain to befall her.
Yeah. Poppy then goes to talk about how the priestess is disappointed with Poppy's lack of commitment to the role of maiden.
But again, how can you expect her to be super committed to an essentially blank ideal?
Yeah. And Hawk even questions, like, what are you supposed to be committed to? He says it. Yeah, exactly. What is she supposed to be committed to? And again, he's like poking holes in the idea of solace. It's clear that he doesn't agree with the system and their beliefs and the religion. So I find it interesting that when we first meet him, or not first meet him because the Red Pearl, I guess, is where we first meet him. But
yeah,
when we're first introduced to Hawk as an idea or a person, he's supposed to be this soldier that's like really interested in climbing rank and in the society, or so we think. But then you actually get to know him and you're like, wait, this guy doesn't agree with the society. So what is his game here? Why is he here?
You are asking excellent questions, Elise.
Thanks. That makes me happy because, like you've said, the structure of this story can be very random. So, but I like reading into things. So at least what I'm reading into is the right things.
Absolutely.
And then he asks her if she would run away to escape her ascension. And I'm going to read a really big passage, but I think he just hits the nail on the head. So, quote, "It seems to me that this honor that has been bestowed upon you comes with very few benefits. You're not allowed to show your face or travel anywhere outside the castle grounds. You didn't even seem at all surprised when the priestess moved to strike you. That leads me to believe it's something fairly common. You're not allowed to speak to most, and you are not to be spoken to. You're caged in your room most of the day, your freedom restricted. All the rights others have are privileges for you, rewards that seem impossible for you to earn." Yikes. Poppy then asks him if he would stop her, but he kind of jokes like he would be too interested to see how she would do it to stop her.
But then, most importantly, she points out that Victor would stop her.
Yeah. So as much as Victor cares for her and wants to protect her, he also will uphold the rules of Solace. Hawk then asks if the priestess will tell the Duke, and Poppy, kind of what I was saying before, brushes it off, lying that, oh, she's probably too busy with the rite, knowing full well that the priestess went straight to the Duke and it's going to come bite her in the ass. They then talk about the upcoming rite, as Poppy has never been to one of these before. And Hawk's just like, it's a lot of talking and tears and drinking. Like, quote, "You know how easy it is to be yourself when you wear a mask." Poppy then just shuts down that conversation right away because she's like, we
cannot go there.
We cannot go there. And it's funny because, like, she knows it's because she wants to go there so badly.
Yeah, she's trying to protect herself.
And then they kind of talk in circles a bit, but they come back to the rite, and Hawk mentions that he's looking forward to seeing Poppy at the rite. And
in
how
red.
How she will be unveiled, but masked. But then he says, quote, "I prefer the version of you that wears no mask or veil." Which
So sweet.
is so sweet.
But also so spicy.
And could also have a lot of, like, layers to it too, right? Like, in terms of when she's just has her guards down and being herself. And then they talk about family, and it comes up that Hawk's brother is dead, which he turns out he isn't. But she thinks in the moment that Hawk's brother is dead because she feels this sense of sadness coming from Hawk, and she uses her powers to soothe him. But he fully notices in the moment. Like,
well, he notices that something happened. He doesn't understand how or why.
Yeah. I guess Victor knows. So when she did it to Victor, he was like, oh, thanks. But I don't know.
Like, just imagine having this smothering sadness 1 minute and then it being gone the next. And you have no explanation for how.
He notes that like all of a sudden he feels lighter. And then that's when he says, oh, by the way, my brother's not dead. So don't feel bad for me.
But that just raises the question, then why are you so sad about your brother?
Exactly. And said, I had a brother, I think. I didn't write it down, but he says something.
He refers to his brother in the past tense.
So logically you'd be like, oh, he died. But he didn't. So Poppy is left wondering what the hell happened. And so are we.
Yep.
So yeah, in this chunk of chapters, I guess we have been given little lines that refer to things that have happened that we don't have the answers to, but like are enough to make us be like, well, I need those answers and keep going. And it's interesting.
Totally. Dimple count.
None.
Question count.
21.
20. We're close.
Awards. Do you have a most romantic?
I do. I like that he'd included me, acknowledging that I could hold my own.
Love it.
You?
Is it worth losing your position over or being ostracized for? If you ever had to ask that question, you don't know me at all.
He's so admirable.
He is.
Do you have a funniest line?
Yeah. You don't?
No, for me, it was just like his overall sass with the priestess.
Okay. Mine is, and you never snuck into one? I'm offended that you would even suggest such a thing. How bizarre that I could think that you, who has a history of misbehaving, would do such a thing.
Yeah, that was on my list, but the sass with the priestess is not like haha funny. It's like a haha funny, you know? Like it's like a satisfying funny. Like it's like a, I don't know. Okay, whatever. I'm going to shut up now. Do you have a spiciest line?
Mine is sassy, spicy.
Mine too.
The language and accent of those from the far west can be difficult for some to master. The maiden, however, appears to not fall in that group.
That was mine, but then I loved when Hawk says, well, now you know that I will never stand by and watch someone hit you or any person for no reason other than they feel they can.
Love it.
Yeah, I really love that. All right, final tally of the day.
Oh my. We have a total of 11 dimples.
180 questions.
That's crazy.
We're halfway through the
book.
That's wild. And I feel like there are even more questions in the second half.
Oh man.
I might be wrong.
Any guesses to what our final tally will be?
I think it'll be close to 300.
I think so too. Yeah, easily.
That's crazy.
That is crazy. Good for her.
I know. I agree. All right. Thank you so much for listening. Next week, please read chapters 21 through 24. Please rate this podcast and leave us a review. It'll help other people find us. And if you haven't already, we encourage you to set new episodes to download so that you're sure to be up to date. If you're interested in supporting the podcast, we have our Amazon storefront and our Smoke Show Hot Sauce discount code as always. You can follow us on Instagram at BookboundPod and on TikTok at BookboundBesties. Tag us in anything you see from Blood and Ash or Empyrean related. We love to hear from you and get DMs. We've been getting some really great DMs from Germany and Austria and Colombia and just all over the world. It's been really, really great.
And I could use a chuckle, guys.
Yeah, Elise needs a little lift of her spirits.
There you go.
And if you have any questions, comments, or feedback, as always, you can email us at bookboundpod@gmail.com. Let's get